Today we have our panelists, and the whole theme of this program or discussion, like I said earlier, is understanding your rights and accessing resources in the midst of executive order around immigration. The community, people are panicked. We don't have the expertise and questions to most of your answers to most of your questions. So we thought it wise to bring in people that come from institution or have the requisite experiences to be able to at least give you an overview of what the whole situation is. So, from the state of Minnesota, Office of the Attorney General, we have the Attorney General himself, Keith Ellison. Our elected official, we have rating Congresswoman Kelly Morrison. Unfortunately, she cannot be here. Her office sent a representation. Who represents the office of the Congresswoman? Please stand. For our next panelist, we have the Chief of Police himself. And most of you know him around this community. He's a common name and a common friend, Chief Bruley. The star of the day from the lawyers, we have our immigration lawyers. So we sought to take one of our very own in the person of Mohammed Jalloh. So, having said that, we are going to welcome on stage our panelists. So, we start from bottom top. Then we start with first. One of the first in the category. We have a son, a grandson of sharecroppers, the first black mayor in the city of Brooklyn Park, who has stormed the water, and today he's one of our own, in the person of Mayor Hollies Winston. He's one of a kind. What we're talking about first, this gentleman is a household name. He's fierce. He delivered justice in a time of uncertainty. When the world were looking at Minnesota, people were wondering, how would it go? He stood up to the plate. And today, Minnesota is a better place because of him. He also visited Liberia when we were contemplating on the dual citizenship. He went there. He spoke to our Congress people. Today we have dual citizenship. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you our brother, Keith Ellison. All right. Congresswoman Kelly Morrison had deputized or sent as her representative from her office one of our very own who have served on a previous congressperson named Philly, and we all know it's a household name, and we hope that Kelly Morrison can be a household name as well. Please put your hand together and welcome Deputy Sawyer. Tonight, moderator is Anthony Cole Guano Emmett. I remember that. She just got married, so she's just looking at me to see what I would call it. Yes, that's it. Cole Guano Emmett, a very brilliant Liberian lawyer, a rising star, and she is our daughter, our sister, and one of our very own. She's one of the moderators. Cole Guano. This gentleman was picked up to be member of the math curriculum, the state of Minnesota. When they decide to revisit and do their curriculum, they call this guy, he always call himself a math teacher. But now, not only did he contributed to that curriculum, but now he has the entire math district in Minneapolis. He pretends to be, and he likes to act very humble and think he's not that, but he's all that. Put your hand together for our very own sister. Yes. So, what are we here today? We're here for a community town hall meeting. We're here to present these people from different institutions with the resources and expertise to navigate our conversation, our questions, and our doubts. Having said that, I will then go over the different segments. The first segment will be the presentation segment. So each of these panelists will be able to give a short presentation from their perspective, from the institution they represent, and the work to do. The second segment will be the panel discussion that the moderator will hold. They will ask questions, and you'll get answers, and at some point in time, the audience will take part. And to those of you that are not here today, well, you can also access this. The link is up there. And I forget to announce somebody. OLM is an organization under the umbrella of ULA. ULA is the Union of Liberian Association in the Americas. And today representing the president of ULA is the Secretary General, Salif. Mr. Salif, thank you very much. Yeah, so that's it. And the next section after the moderator have the panel discussion, we have the audience Q&A that will go for 30 minutes. And we'll have closing remarks. And that will be it. We have out there resources that relate to immigration and what have you. So we're going to take it from the bottom top. And the Attorney General will be the last to give his perspective. So we start first from Mohammed Jalloh.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kamaty. Thank you so much for this excellent opportunity. I am actually very humbled to be here today. When I look at this panel, I not only see the people's lawyer here for our great state of Minnesota. Mr. Ellison and I go back a while. He's not only our top law enforcement officer, but he's actually my brother and mentor. When I came to Minnesota, I had never been west of the Mississippi before. I came here because Hamlin University at the time, which is now, I believe, William Mitchell Hamlin Law School, was the only school that could offer me the opportunity to go to law school. The kind of money what law school wanted, I had the grades, I had everything, but I've never seen that kind of money before. I was still working minimum wage. So when we came here, I remember at our orientation, we met the Honorable Tonya Bransford. We were told she was the first black woman to be a judge, I believe in the state or the Hennepin County District Court at the time. I don't remember. But she was, a pioneer. We get to meet Keith Ellison, Rick Petrie, Herbert Igbanugu, and we've been friends since. And I also want to add just quickly that for all of us here, look at this panel. You know what this reminds me of? We have a very progressive police chief. He's a true cop. He really does a good job for our city. And I mean that. Chief Bruley is a very good police officer, and he makes sure that his police officers under his command act accordingly. And we have a black mayor. We have Keith Ellison here. Do you know what this means? Political participation. If we don't remember anything here when we leave here today, is that numbers matter. Whether you like it or not, this is a representative democracy. So I urge everybody to keep participating. We are going to be losing here a very progressive lady, Tina Smith, our senator. So, we got work to do. But with that said, I look forward to talking with you, all of you, especially about immigration issues. This is a very anxious time for us. We got through 4 years before, we're going to get through 4 years again. But it would take a lot more participation, a lot more determination this time. One of the things that Trumpers like for you to do is that you're terrified, you're scared. Don't be. Seek help. We're here. Talk to us. And if I don't have an answer, I know someone who does. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. You can hear me, right? All right, I'm going to leave it there. Appreciate the opportunity. My name is Mark Bruley. I'm the police chief here in Brooklyn Park. I've been with the city of Brooklyn Park for 30 years this year. Been the police chief just for the past couple of years. Thank you, and great opportunity here for us, and super important to me to get our message out because amidst all this, there's a lot of misinformation about what the police role, your local police role is in immigration. And the truth is, it's extremely limited. The Brooklyn Park Police Department does not involve itself in immigration. We don't ask immigration status on like investigating crimes, and when we go out and do traffic stops, it is not allowed for our officers to ask that information of individuals they come in contact with. But we do intersect, many times in criminal cases, with ICE officers who are federal agents and are tasked with immigration. And so many times we will make an arrest of somebody, and when they go to jail, they get fingerprinted. And at times, ICE will be made aware that that person's in custody, and they can come pick that person up, get a warrant for them, or when they get released, get picked up. And so sometimes people say, hey, chief, you said that you weren't involved in law enforcement, but you arrested somebody and now they're getting deported. And that does happen, but that is not me or my office that is doing that. The immigration office has ways to figure out who's in custody. And one of those ways is a lot of times when you get arrested, the jail staff are required to ask you where you were born. Because we are required, if you're in custody, that we get the information to the consulate of the country of origin where that person came from. That's required. It's a law that we have to follow. And again, that's not police officers doing that. That's the jail staff. But at times, that is how the information is given to ICE. At no time are police officers doing the work of ICE in terms of immigration. Now, there are times when the police officers are investigating certain crimes. And some of those crimes would be like human trafficking or fentanyl smuggling, major crimes that we know that are, one, dangerous to our community, like fentanyl, or certainly impact on our community, having human beings or children being trafficked. And when those crimes intersect with people that are here illegally, at times we do partner with ICE, and it helps us to be able to track individuals, especially if they're trafficking human beings. But that is a very, very, very small window where we would ever partner with ICE. And we don't partner in terms of the immigration. We partner in terms of the effectiveness of being able to track down those individuals who are harming our community or harming our children. And that's why we partner with them as a resource. And again, that's a very, very small window. And that is really the extent of the local law enforcement's involvement. But it does impact our community greatly. Our community is super concerned, as seen all of you here, and it affects a lot of people. And one of the concerns that I have as a police chief is if we have people that are concerned where they start not calling the police, the local police, because they believe that they may be deported or picked up by ICE, that makes me very concerned from a public safety perspective and the human perspective, because then we create a group of very vulnerable people that are scared to call the police when a crime occurs or when they're a victim of a crime or when they see a crime. And the concern I have with that is wrongdoers will seek them out as victims, right? We know that there's certain people in our community that's going to see a vulnerable group who refuses to call the police and start victimizing them because they can really do it without having any concerns that somebody's going to come knocking on the door like the police because nothing gets reported. And that is not good for anybody. It's certainly not good for undocumented people, and it's not good for our community when we try to keep crime suppressed and make sure this is a great place to work, live, and play. And that's what concerns me the most. And so if I would leave you with any message, I would ask that you get out to everybody that you know that you can call the Brooklyn Park Police Department. You do not have to be a victim of a crime. It does not matter what your documented status is, and you can report that crime to the police department. We will investigate it, and we will not ask your immigration status. The last thing I would touch on is kind of where is the state of the union of where ICE is and how active are they in Brooklyn Park. I can tell you, being here 30 years, if I jump back 8, 10, 12 years, it was not that unusual to see ICE call us and let us know that they are in town doing some sort of work. We don't know what that necessarily is. We know that they are focused on immigration, so those ICE officers were picking people up or investigating certain immigration violations. The last 4 years, I don't believe we've had any of those calls. I don't know that ICE has been in Brooklyn Park in the last 4 years, not to my knowledge. I've never been aware of it. They have been very active in Brooklyn Park in the last 3 weeks. We have lots of reports, a lot of people getting picked up. All the individuals that they have picked up, and they have called us to let us know, hey, Brooklyn Park Police, we're in your community, we're at this address, and let you know we're trying to pick this person up. I can tell you of the individuals that I'm aware of, they had all criminal records or had been previously deported by judge's order and now had re-entered back illegally into the United States, and we're here in Brooklyn Park. Those are the two themes that ICE was working on from my perspective. And we also had other people calling 911 saying, hey, my brother is missing. We think that they may be picked up by ICE. So I and some other chiefs asked the assistant director of ICE, who the director is here in St. Paul. St. Paul's a hub office. But that director oversees ICE operations in Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, and Iowa. That's the region that he is in charge of. And so we sat down with him and asked a lot of pointed questions like, what is the difference now? What are you guys focused on? Are you doing mass pickups? Are you doing sweeps? And what I learned from him is all they are focused on right now, the direction that he has given to all his people and the direction that he's getting from Washington is to focus on those that have been re-entered into the United States after being deported previously. So they were deported by immigration court or a judge's order. They left or were supposed to leave. So either they never did leave or they left and returned back and they know that they're here. And the second one is those that have been convicted of crimes, criminal acts, and are here undocumented. They're focused on picking those up. He described it as they are only doing case work. And by case work, he means they have a case on an individual, they have their name, they have the background, their history, everything they know about them, and they go out looking for that individual. He said that there has been no directions to do sweeps, no directions to go to locations and just pick people up or look for random people or groups of workers that may be here undocumented. He said that is not the focus, and to his knowledge, that is not going to be the focus. But he did admit this is moving very fast, and the rules are coming from way higher than him. And right now what they've been told is just to focus on those two categories, which is those committing criminal acts and those who have refused to leave after being told to leave and or have left and came back in. And so that's where they're at today. He actually is super pleasant. I asked a lot of questions that I heard many of our community express, and one of those is going into our schools. He claimed that there is no intent, they will not be going into schools other than very rare circumstances where there's a high level like crime. And he actually used the words like a terrorist connection. If they think somebody's in a school and has a terrorist connection, even if it's a child of them, they potentially would do that. That would be only under those weird circumstances. He advised me that he has told his staff, we are not going into the schools, and it has to go through him before that's done. The other thing that I heard a lot about is, and this is a concern of mine, is moms and dads getting picked up who may be here undocumented, and then have children in school. Like, who's going to take care of the kids and who's going to alert the kids? And he went through a very robust plan that they absolutely have plans for that. They will never leave a child uncared for or in a school. The only way that could possibly happen where local law enforcement might get involved in that is if the undocumented person who gets picked up does not tell ICE that the child is here or they have a child in school. He indicated that most of the time they will know about the children and have made arrangements always with other family members first. And the second way would, if they absolutely end of the day, they would do one of two things, which is try to give that person who they have in custody a court date to go to court at a later date to figure this out, and then allow them to continue caring for the child, because he made it clear that that is the priority. If it is such that they cannot or feel it's not safe to allow that person out of custody to care for the child, then the last resort is they would call child protection to get involved. And again, he really expressed that that would be the absolute last resort. They prefer to keep the continuity of parent care and then figure out the documentation issues in immigration court. So he seemed very sympathetic to that. And that's probably the big takeaways. But I hope you have tons of questions, because I'll answer anything I can for you. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Bruley. So it's a good thing you left it down for us. So we will touch protocol a little bit, because the Attorney General has another engagement. So he just decided he could not miss this. We'll just go straight to the Attorney General. And basically, like we said, the theme of today's program is understanding our rights and accessing resources in the wake of what's going on. And we want to focus on specific topics such as our legal rights, community safety, and available resources. Ladies and gentlemen, the Attorney General of the great state of Minnesota, Mr. Kamaty.
Thank you, and thank everyone. And if Pastor Tapia is here, thank you, brother, for opening up your doors. May God bless you. So I'm your Attorney General. And when I ran for this office, which is an elected office, and you know that because many of y'all supported me, my goal was not to be fighting with the federal government every day, but that's what it feels like I've been doing ever since January 20th. I can tell you that I'm dedicated to the rule of law, and everything that Trump has done is doable through law. But you've got to introduce a bill in Congress, you've got to hear it in committee, it's got to be passed by that House or Senate, and then signed by the president, and then if you want to change the Constitution, there's a process for that. Anytime he does not go by the legal process, I'm absolutely going to sue him. I'm telling you that. If he does go by the legal process and I don't like what he's doing, I'm going to use my First Amendment rights to say I don't like it. But he's got to do it, whatever he does has got to be legal, otherwise we're going to be in court. So let me start out with birthright citizenship. Birthright citizenship starts out with African Americans. That's where it starts, because the Supreme Court of the United States said that we weren't citizens when a man named Dred Scott at Fort Snelling said, I'm on free territory, therefore I'm free, and he went to court to try to get his freedom. And the court made it all the way up to the United States Supreme Court, and a justice from the state of Maryland named Roger Taney said, you're in bondage, you have no rights, you are not allowed to sue. You're not even a citizen, even though you've been here for ever since the Pilgrims arrived here, since 1619. The Supreme Court, not the Supreme Court, but the Civil War happens, 1861 to 1865. The North wins, and the North says in 1868, we're going to pass a constitutional amendment that says everyone is a citizen in the state in which they're born. And that's where birthright citizenship comes from. There were other examples of birthright citizenship on this soil before that. But this one, it is written into the Constitution. It's tested in 1898 when a man born in San Francisco leaves San Francisco, goes back to his parents' country of China, then comes back to the United States, and they say, you can't come here because you're Chinese. And remember, our country passed through Congress a law called the Chinese Exclusion Act. Did you know that the U.S. passed such a law? It did. It did. The Chinese Exclusion Act. And this was in that era. By the way, the case makes it to court in 1898. 2 years before Plessy versus Ferguson. Does anybody know what happened in that case? The United States said said segregation was legal by race. But anyway, even though the country was not in a friendly mood or an inclusive mood for all people, the Supreme Court says, well, the 14th Amendment says what it says, and Mr. Wong Kim Ark, you're an American citizen because you're born in California. And that's the law. 127 years ago. So you cannot change a Supreme Court opinion and a constitution with a presidential executive order. So we went to court and we defeated Donald Trump. And it was a Reagan-era judge that said he was wrong. So the other things that we've been doing, and I'm going to tell you about it all because it's all important, is, and I did take notes here, so forgive me for having to use them so I don't want to miss anything. So there have been other things that are not necessarily on immigration, but I want you to know about them, such as illegal cuts to medical and public health innovation research. The Trump administration issued an executive order saying we're going to cut the National Institute of Health budget by 15%. What's the problem? Congress appropriates money. Madam DeConta Kofi, who is a very important leader with the Congresswoman, can tell you that Congress appropriates money. The president does not appropriate money. Congress has the power of the purse. We went to court and said this is illegal, and the court said you're right. So we've stopped that. We have a temporary injunction on that. Then this thing called the Department of Government Efficiency, he has some private citizens who have not disclosed their financial interests in the federal government. They've not disclosed their conflicts of interest, but the president has given them authority to literally rummage through the Treasury Department. We filed a lawsuit against him. He's enjoined so far. We'll see what happens next. On this issue of DEI, let me just say this about DEI. Diversity. If you don't like diversity, what you're saying is only one racial group can participate. You either have everybody involved, that's diversity, or only one group can be involved. That's segregation. And we went through that for a long, long time. It started a war and it started a civil rights movement. So how can you be against DEI? The word, what's the opposite of inclusion? This is audience participation. What's the opposite of inclusion? So you don't like DEI? Do you want a DEE? You want exclusion? But the president has issued executive orders trying to stop efforts at DEI. Well, the bottom line is we're going to fight him in court wherever this comes up because you cannot change our civil rights laws with a executive order. We've issued guidance, and it's important for me to share with you about this. And this is something the chief already touched on, and I want to thank him for that. My office at the Attorney General is sometimes responsible for issuing what's known as Attorney General guidance. This is just to help instruct people what the state of the law is. County Attorney John Choi asked me to issue an opinion, and we did. And the opinion is this: Minnesota law prohibits state or local law enforcement agencies from holding someone based on immigration detainer if the person would otherwise be released from custody. So yes, ICE can hold people, but they've got to do their job to put forth the proper warrants. It's not lawful to just let somebody sit in jail because maybe ICE might come get them. Can't just hold you for ICE. ICE has got to make the proper paperwork and filings, and then you can be held for ICE. The opinion, as I said, was requested by Ramsey County Attorney John Choi, who asked the office for an opinion or whether Ramsey County or by extension any county can lawfully hold people in custody based on immigration detainers issued by federal authorities. The bottom line is they've got to have that warrant in place, and if they do, they can hold them for ICE. If they don't, they cannot and should not. Now, I just want y'all also to know this is not on immigration, but it is on something called gender-affirming care. Everybody knows that there are transgender people in our community. And you may approve of them, you may not approve of them. That's not the point. The point is they have a right to live. We live in a country where it says, we believe in liberty and justice for. It doesn't say liberty and justice except trans people. It says liberty and justice for all. If you think God doesn't support them, well, then let God deal with them. You leave them alone. Right? And so the president is trying to punish institutions like the University of Minnesota and others who do gender-affirming medical care, and he's trying to issue executive orders stopping against prisoners who are transgender and other things like that. We have gone to court to stop this because we believe in equal justice for all, and we have won a temporary restraining order to stop that. Now, when on this issue, back to DOGE, when the Department of Government Efficiency stopped $3 trillion with a T, $3 trillion all across the United States. Did you know the Trump administration tried to do that? He said, stop issuing checks. $3 trillion. Things for Meals on Wheels. Things like Burn Jag grants. These are grants that help local law enforcement meet their resource needs. People who are keeping you protected and safe in your neighborhoods. He's going to impound all that money. We went to court to unstick that money on the theory that Congress appropriates money and the president doesn't have any authority to just stop it. So we did that. We're winning there. Also, so we're doing a lot of things. I want you to know about them. But the main thing I also want you to know is that we have issued guidance on children in schools. I want to thank the chief for mentioning the worry that so many people have about what happens if parents get picked up and they're in detention and students are in class coming home and they don't have anyone. You know, the guidance that is on my website, it's 4 pages. It's designed for professionals. But if you want to read it, I really want to urge you to go there. I will tell you this, that nobody should obstruct, meaning physically try to stop an ICE agent. That's a crime. But if ICE agents show up at your school, don't handle that yourself. Get the principal, get the authority at the school. They will get the legal counsel for the school, and you can handle it from there. But don't say, okay, go on in. Say, no, wait right here, sir. Call the proper authorities at your school. They're going to grab the guidance that I sent them, and that's really all you need to know. Don't try to solve that problem right there. Don't try to certainly don't touch or try to obstruct that ICE agent, but definitely hold them there and get the proper authorities who will have the proper legal background to handle that matter. And so let me just sit down and say that we've never been in a moment in American history where we've had over 55 executive orders where Congress is not acting, and basically you have a situation where state attorneys general are confronting the president in court over his attempt to rule the country by executive orders. This is new. We are in uncharted territory. Some of you will say, well, what should I do? I'm really nervous. Well, me too. We need to stay together, share good information, make sure we're listening to each other, and keep on standing up for our rights. If you think that by just, oh, well, I think Trump doesn't like DEI, so I'm going to get rid of my program, that's not going to save you. I think we should just go to court and fight for DEI rather than just agree in advance. It is important that we remember, we stand up and we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and it always ends with, "and liberty and justice for all." We need to stick by this critical principle. Stand up for this principle. This is the most patriotic thing you can do. You don't pledge allegiance to the president, you pledge allegiance to the flag, and you pledge allegiance to the Constitution. And when I swear my oath, I swear an oath to the Constitution, not the president. Presidents come and go. The Constitution stays there. And the Constitution says that he cannot do many of the things that he's doing. So if he starts obeying the law, I'll stop suing him. Otherwise, you know what I'm going to be up to.
I didn't hear that clap. That's the guy. Very fearless. So we're going to get the thing rolling. So we call on our own very mayor to give the city's perspective.
Well, thank you, Pastor Tabla, for having us here. Thank you, OLM, for setting this up. And then thank you, everybody that showed up. And did want to give a shout out to Kamaty Kofa-Sawyer. I know she's doing a ton with Congresswoman Morrison's office. I actually went to D.C. and visited and brought up some of these the topics that we're talking about. And that office has been very much following this and tracking this. And they understand that the residents are concerned, and they're doing their part on this. From the city of Brooklyn Park perspective, there's two important things. One, our city is very much just focused on the basic blocking and tackling of the city, and that means keeping our residents safe. So that means when it comes to our police department, and thank you, Chief Bruley, for leading and living this. But for us, it's very much about focusing on getting ahead of crime and continuously pushing crime down. So we don't have resources necessarily to do what the federal agenda is, right? So for us, we've been very much focused on that. That's why I'm here. That's why we're getting the word out in terms of what we're doing. And I think the second piece is important as well. I think people have to realize that as a city, we are very much all interconnected. And I like to give the example. If someone gets hit by a car, if there's a hit and run, someone gets hit by a car and they're laying on the street and they're suffering. And then we've got somebody who comes and we don't know their status, but they come and they sit with that person. Do we want a city where they're scared to call 911, or they're scared to do their part or their duty as a resident of Brooklyn Park? And we've said as a city, no, we want them to feel free to call 911 to interact with our services as they've been offered. So when we think about folks getting their tabs or interacting with the city to pay the water bill or calling 911 for fire or for police, we want folks to know that as a city, we're supportive of that. And so what that looks like is honoring a policy that we've had in place, but now we're beginning to codify that. And as our police chief said, we're not going to be asking people their immigration status. But the second piece is, as a city, when we talk about our city staff, we're not going to be asking people their immigration status there as well. And we're figuring out what exactly that looks like, right? There's policies in place. We can give a blanket statement on that, but we know, because many folks are interacting with the city at different levels, right? When it comes to licensing or other pieces, where are the touch points, right? And where can we ensure that we are not asking those questions nor collecting information that we don't need to collect around that status. So we will let people know as time goes on what those actual statuses are, how we're getting those particular statuses out to people, how we are making those changes, right? But that's a process that we need to work on over a period of time so that we get it right, so that our city can remain safe, residents can remain safe, and we can provide the regular resources that we provide as a city. And the other piece is, as we learn that, we will continue to communicate with you. We'll continue to get the word out to you as well, every step of the way. But just give us some time to figure that out. We're moving as quickly as we can to do that, and just know it's very much a priority for not just myself. I saw a couple of city councils out there, Councilmember Garvey, Councilmember Page. The council is very much on board with making sure residents understand our policies and that we have policies in place that are obeying the rule of law, but are also allowing us to do the job that we need to do as a city. And that first priority is always going to be to keep people safe and provide them with those necessary resources. So again, thank you to the folks who have set this up. Thank you to the panelists. And I know that there will be questions here, but also know that if you have questions in the future, feel free to reach out to me, mayor@brooklynpark.org. Feel free to reach out to our staff, and we will get you the information as we have the information as well. So thank you.
I think while Kamaty is coming, the next person we'll call on here is our own sister, Deconti. I wanted to do that.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Deconti Kofa Soya, and I am an immigrant, specifically a Liberian immigrant, and I am honored to be here. There's a lot going on in our community, and I want you all to know that y'all have people in places that's here to support you. We're not going to sit by idly and let our community continue to get disrupted by a disruptor. When Congressman Dean Phillips was in office and we met as a team, the very first team meeting, he asked our team for us to each tell him district issues that were important to our district for him to fight for. When it came to my turn, one of the first things the first thing I said was DED for Liberians. And we fought for that issue and didn't rest until it was passed and Liberians in DED were able to get pathway to citizenship. And a lot of people took advantage of that opportunity. And so I say this to say I'm now in Congresswoman Kelly Morrison's office, and the question has been posed again. And of course, I'm letting her know and the rest of the team know that this is an important issue in our district. This is what we're going to continue to fight for. So know that we're here for you. Everyone else said a lot on the panel, so I won't go much longer. I would say if your family member or someone you know gets taken by ICE, be sure to get connected with legal representation because that becomes a legal matter. If you reach out to our office, we can help connect you with legal advocacy groups around the state, and our office can contribute a letter of support to help strengthen cases. A lot of the times, ultimately, a lot of things are out of our hands, but we will not rest. We will advocate for you every step of the way and contribute in any way that we can. So don't shy away from reaching out so we can also connect you with appropriate resources in places that may be out of our jurisdiction. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. And you can always reach out to me through these guys. Our office is here to support. Thank you.
I didn't get a hand clap though. Okay, I'll check my ears. All right, so I think the first stage is done. Now we have the panel discussion. We have these two panelists, two distinguished personalities and rising stars in our community. Anthony Cole, Guano Emmett. I got it right. And Sisikoa, go ahead. Take the floor. You want to pass it her? Okay, let's go ahead.
Okay. The police chief, you had talked about, or I think it was Attorney Ellison had talked about how ICE can't hold people or, pick up people without like the proper warrants and paperwork, and how you should follow like the guidance that you put out. But what about if you're in a location that, you don't have a legal advisor, you're in your home or you're somewhere else? How do you determine that the paperwork ICE is giving you is proper, that they have the proper paperwork to detain you or on behalf of someone else?
You still have rights, and you have due process rights. So say, for example, you are out somewhere and you somehow get picked up by police, and you are concerned about how your legal status is going to impact your situation. The reality is, if you're here and you've been through removal proceedings, they're still going to have to determine that they're still going to have to make that determination, right? And if there are other reasons why you might be removable, you're still going to be able to you have a right to counsel, you have a right to be able to consult with your lawyer. And so if you get picked up on the street or somewhere, my advice is just to provide your ID, be quiet, and call your lawyer. And that's about the smartest thing you can do, because we can't solve any legal problem you may encounter here, but get your legal counsel and plead your situation.
Yeah, I would maybe just add a little bit to that. Not much I can add, but from my perspective, because I've had to make sure that our officers have been educated on this, because ICE does call, either at times to let us know that they're out there, but as this seems to be ramping up, I can predict that they are going to ask for help at times. And it's I made it really clear to the director that that is not our role. I won't. When it comes to public safety, if there's a safety need for our community and for the ICE agents, we will come out there to make sure people are safe, but we will not get involved in executing the job of the federal government. That's not my role. My role is to take care of this community. Regarding the question at hand, there's three things that ICE agents can use at their disposal, and we only recognize one, and I reminded the director of ICE this when I met with him, and that is they can, very similar to police officers, they can make like a probable cause arrest. Like as a federal agent, they can have facts and circumstances that lead a reasonable person to believe a crime is occurring, and they can take action. We won't participate. We won't stop them because we can't. In fact, we could get arrested if we hinder their ability. So it made it clear to the officers that that's up to the ICE agent. The second thing is they can do something that certainly local law enforcement and state officials can't, and they can issue an administrative warrant, they call it. It's really an administrative subpoena. An ICE agent can issue that. That is not, and I will just tell you, they will say it's a warrant. And I reminded my staff, that is not a warrant. That is a warrant for us is issued by a magistrate or a judge. These are not issued by a magistrate or judge. They are administrative subpoenas that they have been granted authority to issue as ICE agents. I do not honor them. That is not something that we will honor them or take action. They mean nothing to me. And then the last one is probably the one we most pay attention to, and that would be anytime a judge has issued an actual warrant. So if a judge has issued a warrant and it's to pick that person up, and even if my officers come in contact with that person for, say, something, a theft or just a DWI, and the person has a warrant for immigration violation and it's issued by a judge, we absolutely have to honor that, and we will honor that and bring that person back before the judge through the system. And I will tell you I can't even tell you the last time I seen that. It's probably been 10 years or better, but I would anticipate potentially as this seems to be ramping up, those could be more prevalent. So I think the advice was extremely sound. I'm not in the business of advice. I'm in the business of providing public safety, but you absolutely have a right in your home to be protected and safe. And I will just share with you, when we had a lot of conversations with the director of ICE, I expressed pretty deeply that this is incredibly impactful to the community. The fear is almost as bad as the reality because nobody knows what to expect. I mean, can they expect one day you're going to be raiding their house? I mean, we like to believe that's not possible, but some of the things that we hear around this topic make us believe that. And I will be honest, in my conversations with him, he's born, raised Minnesota, military background, really family man, like really good guy. He's like, that's not the business I'm in. I'm not into kicking doors for immigration laws. I mean, when it's a violent criminal that we're looking for, and they also have documentation undocumented, yeah, then there's potential that we would. But he's like, we've done none of those, and that's not our plan. And that is true. We've had them knocking on doors in Brooklyn Park, and people have not answered, quite honestly. I am very happy to say, like, we've been knocking on doors like we do all the time when we get police calls, and our community looks out there like, you with ICE? And the officer's like, no, we're not. They're like, oh, okay, open the door and come in. So it makes me feel good that we have built that trust in our community. But you have that right in your home to make that decision whether you're going to let somebody in or out. I will tell you the actions that we've seen out of ICE thus far is they're waiting for people to leave. Like, they believe that the person that they are looking for is in the house. They're waiting, and when that person goes in the parking lot, that is when they're picking them up. And that's all the cases that we've seen.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So it's good that the police chief ended on the issue of fear. What is not lost on me is that we're in a faith-based entity right now hosting this. And during normal times, that's normal in quotation, faith-based places were considered safe. Schools were considered safe places from immigration enforcement. I know schools have the resources to reach out to their counselors and their councils, but I don't know if Pastor Tabla has a counsel and resources to reach out to counselors when immigration folks show up here. So it's against that backdrop I want to ask a question. I am a teacher. I have students right now that are struggling. Parents are concerned, do I send my kids to school? Do I not send them to school? I don't send them to school. They get marked absent, truancy. They end up in the court system. I have to go to court. I'm back with immigration. I send them to school. I'm concerned. Here is my question for all of you stay up here. What are your offices doing to help families cope with the stress and the mental health issues associated with that? With concerns over the police chief believes in what one person is telling him, but when you listen to Stephen Miller and you listen to President Trump talk about there might be collateral damage in people getting deported along with their kids, what assurances do you give community folks, or what efforts are you making to work with community folks in dealing with these mental health crises associated with these stressors? Anybody can take it. The three of you got chance.
I can be really quick. Perspective, we're not doing anything in that arena. We're not equipped to provide that service. We have a lot of city staff that are doing a lot of great work to get resources out there. From the city perspective, the city seems to be doing a really good job of working with all the community partners to try to get as much information out there to bring that fear level down, which is really important to us because it's horrifying to think about parents. They ask, hey, Chief, should I put my kid in school? Are they going to be picked up? And that's one of the reasons that drove me to meet with the director of ICE is that specific question, because as a parent, that'd be horrifying. I don't have to sit and think, is my kid going to be picked up? And how sad would that be as a parent to have to think, can I send my kid to school? And I really believe, at least today, the answer is there is no intent to go into the schools. But that doesn't mean the fear isn't out there. And I will be honest with you, that's today. What does this look like in 5 days, 5 months from now? I don't know. And I think that's probably the most disappointing it is for me, is it doesn't matter whether I agree with whether immigration should be enforced more than not. Immigration law has been on the books forever. I mean, this isn't new. The enforcement and the way this is being handed out is completely new. And for me personally, that is what I'm disappointed in, is there's no organization, there's no communication, there's no plan. It's really just driven on fear and statements that have gone viral essentially, which just adds to people's uncertainty of unknowing what the future looks like, and that's not good for anyone. It's not good for a community. So let's pass the mic down.
Yeah. So I'll keep this brief. I don't know that we have a ton of mental health resources in-house as the city. I think one of the things that we are learning, and one of the reasons we're taking this approach, when we knew that we would be struggling this, we said, okay, we're going to have a number of meetings with the community to figure out what folks are struggling with. And then as we learn from those meetings, we're going to start getting the resources that we get in front of them. So we're not necessarily positioned in terms of our budget to do that, but I do think that as we learn more from what the schools are doing, I know that our city manager and other staff are beginning to, they have reached out to schools, and some of the school boards are figuring out how they're going to address this, and some of the schools are figuring that out. As we get that information, we're figuring out how can we plug in and share that information at the places that we're having these conversations. But some of that information has not even been released to us from the schools there. But I think as we learn, we will get that information out more and more to residents so that we can calm some of that fear down. Because I think part of this approach that we're seeing politically is to instill fear in communities. And, you know, coming from a community that people have attempted to instill fear in, I think we have to, yes, remain calm, but we have to aggressively, right, find the solutions that we can find and get the information out as much as we can. I think that's one of the reasons the city is here, but we've been kind of on, I don't want to say, we've been on kind of a circuit in terms of going on different podcasts and talking to different people and having different meetings, and we're going to continue to do that to make sure that information gets out there. So just to summarize it very quickly, no, there are not a ton of resources internally for the mental health aspect within our city. However, we are working with our partners to get the information on what they're providing, and as we get that, we will share that with you as much as possible. The last piece I will say, if there are things that you think as a city we are just missing or overlooking or something we can address, again, feel free, reach out to us, because this is something that we are learning as we go, how to best respond to this. And we're not going to have all that because this is something that is changing on the ground even as we speak.
I joined the chief and the mayor. As many of you know, I'm an attorney in private practice, so I don't offer specifically what the question was asking. But I want to take this opportunity to just make some points that I hope will benefit everybody here who has concerns about this. If you are in the United States and you are not documented, meaning you don't have the lawful status to be here, you don't have any pending application or petition might allow you down the line to be here legally, and you come in contact with ICE, that doesn't mean you're going to be in your native country tomorrow. I mean, the Attorney General talked about this due process. The only people that should be extremely concerned about being picked up and deported within a matter of days or weeks is somebody who has a final removal order, which means, and the AG talked about due process rights. So you have been put in what they used to call deportation proceedings. Now the fancy jargon is removal proceedings, two sides of the same coin. And you've gone through the process, and immigration judge has ordered that you would remove from this country to whatever country that was designated by the judge. And you either have exhausted all of your appeals, or you've not appealed, or you've appealed and you've lost. And now you are here, you are on supervised release, or you get in trouble again with the law and you get picked up by ICE. Or you are somebody who has a very serious criminal record. Or you are someone who has been in the United States for less than 2 years. Or you are someone, and the police chief alluded to this, you have been through the process, you've been deported, and you came back again unlawfully. Other than that, let's say you've been here for 5, 10 years, pick a number, and you come in contact with ICE. Do what the Attorney General has said earlier. Don't create a situation. You know, ICE, they do immigration enforcement, but they are law enforcement officers. They're federal enforcement officers, right? They have that police power to do what they're authorized to do under the immigration laws. So they pick you up. If you don't have any criminal record, you're only here, your only immigration offense is unlawful presence, overstaying your visa or something, you are not in imminent danger of being deported. They will bring you, they might arrest you, detain you, process you, and there's an excellent chance they will just give you what's called a notice to appear, an NTA. You will see that document. It's basically your summons in order to come to court and tell the judge why you shouldn't be deported. And if they don't grant you a bond, you have the right to go see someone like me and go to court and ask for what's called a bond redetermination, okay? And if you don't have any criminal record to speak of and you've been here for that time, there's an excellent chance the judge is going to order that you get some bond. Now, the potential downside of immigration bond is it's cash. If they say $5,000, they don't even take money orders from Super America, right? So there are times when we've gone to court, we've got a bond, and our clients simply cannot afford it, okay? So keep that in mind as you interact if, God forbid, you come in contact with ICE. And, I just want to throw this out there. If you have or know someone who has a removal order, and it's not because of a criminal conviction, not particularly serious offenses, right? Don't wait until you come in contact with ICE. Seek help. Talk to someone, talk to an immigration lawyer. You might be sometimes pleasantly surprised what you find. Let's say you are picked up by ICE years ago, and you didn't make it to your initial, what they call the master calendar hearing, right? And the court said, all right, you have a court date. You didn't show up, so we're just going to give the government what they want. It's called an in absentia removal order. So the judge ordered you removed in your absence. Now, that's a final order if you haven't appealed within the 30 days. But you may have good reason for not have gone to court. It's called, we have this fancy jargons in immigration law. It's exceptional circumstances or notice, right? Maybe you didn't get the letter. Maybe you, God forbid, you were driving down to immigration, as I've seen before, and you were on Uber and there was an accident. The judge is going to open that case for you. And then you are back in the fold, then you can seek whatever relief you're eligible for before the court, right? So, just keep that in mind. Being worried about this, being scared about it, it might not take you that far. And I'm not saying people shouldn't be worried about this. It's worrying. We're in worrying times. You had the Attorney General talk about, the president not following the law. An executive order is not the law, right? Because he didn't go through the process. But in conclusion, just get help. If you know someone, talk to somebody, get help. Don't wait until you get to that point.
Okay, I think I want you to hold the mic right there. I have a follow-up question for you, if you would. Because I like that you've been laying our fears around who is going to be picked up. But I wanted to draw your attention to the law that was passed and signed on January 29th of this year by President Trump, which is the Lincoln-Riley Act. That basically talk about you could be picked up for minor infractions like shoplifting or anything else, you could be deported. In light of that, should immigrants with immigration problem and statuses that have not violated any of those really critical violent crimes that the police chief and you have been talking about be also worried?
Well, thank you. That's a very good question. Just in brief, the Lincoln-Riley Act, in my judgment, is one of the worst laws ever passed in this country. It is designed not only to detain people from otherwise non-violent offenses. I think the chief will join me in this. There are people who should be detained. But just because you stole something at Walmart, it's bad. You shouldn't be stealing. But that's not a violent crime, right? We all can agree on that. The Lincoln, even though, let's say you get arrested today by the Brooklyn Park PD because you stole something, right? And you're not documented. if you don't have a final removal order against you, you don't have any other serious offenses, ICE might detain you. You still have due process rights. You will still have to go before an immigration judge. They will still have to take you there to get an order to deport you, right? So, and those, to me, actually, the most dangerous part of the Lakin Act is not just the detention side. It's dependent. If you're living in Texas today, this legislation, this law actually gives attorney generals the right to go sue the federal government to say, oh, you didn't detain this person. That tells you what the law intends. But all of this comes down to one thing. Get help. We have resources. OLM, Guinea Association, the Madingo Association. We have people here. I see a lot of faces that I'm very familiar with that are genuinely concerned. To be honest, one of the most disappointing things for me right now over the past 3 weeks is, everybody remember the Liberian Refugee Immigration Act? Best immigration law ever passed in our lifetimes. If you are able to establish that you are a Liberian and you've been in this country on or before, I think it was November 2014, you don't have any criminal records, you are 6 months to a year and a half away of getting your lawful permanent residency, right? And guess what? Your residency will be backdated to November 20, 2014. I represented quite a few people, and I was privileged to get that opportunity. You know what else I did for most of them? As soon as they get the green card, we turn around, we file for the citizenship. And that was extended, I think, twice. I'm getting calls, including this past Friday, where people who will be eligible for LRIF are in our community and they've never sought help. It's amazing. You could be a citizen right now. The last thing you will have to worry about is immigration enforcement. But again, how people like that didn't know about LRIF when OLM went out of their way to announce it, I don't know. But brothers and sisters, you're not going to, if you come to the United States on a B1 or B2 visa, ordinarily they give you 6 months to stay, right? If you've been here past 6 months, it doesn't matter how long you're here. If you don't go through the process, you're still undocumented. You can stay here all you want. So get help.
Thank you. So we're going to transition to the Q&A part from the audience. I'm going to read off 2 questions from the online audience as you all formulate your questions. So this one relates to the healthcare setting. It's from a healthcare worker. And the question says, I am a healthcare worker. Is there a possibility that ICE would go through hospitals and clinics to pick up undocumented people? As healthcare workers, we were told to call risk management to let them know and to not let them access to patients' areas. What other advice would you give to a healthcare worker in this situation?
I really don't know. That's the answer. But I would tell you this: like, there's really robust laws around, like HIPAA laws that protect information for healthcare workers, so they really can say, hey, I can't tell you that. I know that because it happens all the time for my detectives when we have somebody that's in jail that we're trying to get to, speak to, or interview, or get information on. We actually have a hard time. We have to go get warrants a lot of times to get information from a hospital about a victim or a suspect that maybe have injuries related to a crime that we're investigating. That'd be no different for ICE. I will tell you a couple things to be kind of aware of with ICE agents is you can't lie to them. You can't obstruct them in any way. They have very liberal laws for obstructing a federal agent, much different than a local police. I can come knock on your door and you can just lie to me at will, and there's nothing I can do about it. You can tell me all sorts of lies and it doesn't matter. If you do that to a federal agent and obstruct them and lie to them, they deem it to be obstructing. They're very liberal and can arrest you for obstruction. So I just put that out there that federal agents, and whether it doesn't matter if it's ICE, DEA, FBI, have that ability to be pretty liberal with arresting people for obstructing. As far as specifically at a hospital setting, I can tell you, because we went through this, it's definitely not what they're doing right now. And again, exceptions would be really rare cases where dangerous people, to be determined by ICE, when they have dangerous people where they absolutely feel like it is in the best interest of public safety to go into a religious establishment or a hospital, they will, but they had not been doing that. They have no plans to do that, and that would be a really exceptional case that they would do that on. But again, I don't think many of us thought we'd be here today 6 months ago, right? So it's worth the conversation, and I would encourage that person to reach out to their management and come up with the strategies that make sense if it does happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with the chief, and I think the short answer for me on that is, well, I don't know. But here's what I think the AG alluded to this, and the chief did as well earlier. Remember, if you are inside your own place, your facility, or your home, we all have Fourth Amendment protections in this country. If somebody is doing that, the first thing you want to do is, do they have a warrant? Is that warrant signed by a judge, right? And if not, then you can ask to contact your higher up and get help.
So I'll keep this brief. Like the others, I don't necessarily know, but I think what we can do, and I was remiss in saying this earlier because I think we overlooked this a lot, but when it comes to Brooklyn Park, we are 22% of the folks in Brooklyn Park were born outside the United States of America. So I think we know how important that community is to us, and we know what y'all do for the country. We know what y'all do for our city. So I'll say that quickly. Having said that, I don't necessarily know the answer to that particular thing, but what I can do is the AG is not here. AG Ellison is not here, but I know our staff is here, so if you could just put a note to reach out to him and see what his thoughts are on that, what he's hearing about that. We can look into that, and then we will get what we find to OLM and some other leaders in the community, but we will follow up with that piece.
Thank you. So the final question from online before we go to the audience. Police Chief, you were talking, there will be light refreshments outside after the event in the gym. Thank you. You had talked earlier about how the police department, is not in the business of doing, ICE's work, but through the nature of your work, if there's like an arrest and, fingerprinting and asking about country of birth, that information then trickles down to ICE. This person online wants to know, what is the time estimate of that process? Like from the time, I guess maybe the booking to the time that maybe ICE could obtain that information, what time period are we looking at?
Yeah, great question. And it's a little dated because, again, the last 4 years we've had none of these issues. ICE was really told to stand down. We have not had any of these issues. But I can lean on prior to the last 4 years, these issues would come up where we would fingerprint somebody, and it goes into a system, and it's a national-wide fingerprint system. And as all of you know, the government is one thing for sure, and that is slow. And so almost all the time, that person has been released or sent downtown and already released because it takes many, many hours for that system to identify who that person is. Then ICE gets alerted. Then they call the region of the country that's located in. By the time they get back to us, we're like, that was yesterday. That person's been long gone. So it's actually very, very rare that we get an issue right away. And to be honest with you, the only time that happens is like when somebody's, has violent crime where ICE has been looking for them for a long time and they get alerted, and then sometimes we'll get notification. Now, when that happens and ICE says, hey, they call and they say, do you have this person in your jail? And our jailer has to say yes or no. They can't lie to them and say, yes, that person is in our jail still. They will put an ask in. They'll say, hold them for us. We're coming to get them. Our answer I've told my jail staff, the answer is always the same. We're not going to hold anybody any longer. They're anticipated to be in jail till X time, or they might be sent downtown, or they're getting released. If they're getting released, we will not hold them for ICE. We will continue the process of releasing them, whether they had gotten bail or a bond, etc., and we'll release them. Now, that puts the onus on ICE to go get a detainer. They can do that. They can go get a detainer and say that we get an order saying, we are going to take this person from you. We're taking custody of that person from you, Brooklyn Park, or from Henry County Sheriff's Office, and we'll get that. And so we honor the detainer if they have their order. Most of the time, we send our prisoners, if they're going to be charged in custody, downtown, and we just ship that detainer right with the prisoner to the downtown jail. And then it's the sheriff who's got to make that decision. But I think we're good. We're getting ahead. Nobody disagreed, so I think that's the right answer.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to stand here, and whoever has questions from the audience can come up and have the microphone and ask.
Good afternoon. My name is Beatrice. I got a question about a family member who has their mother out of state, and she has a work permit. So now she's afraid to travel because somebody told her they have ICE posted on the airports and stuff. So now she's afraid. So she kept asking me, am I supposed to travel or not? I said, I have no idea. So I want to know whether it's safe for her to go with a work permit, because she usually used to travel with the work permit and her state ID, including her passport. But now she's afraid.
I'll probably defer to the lawyer because he's going to be way smarter on this than I am. But I can tell you that there's two things difference about immigration laws. There's a criminal immigration law violation, and that criminal is the ones that I think you've heard me already talking about, and that is you've been ordered to leave the country and where you were deported and then you re-entered back into the country. That's a criminal act, a violation of the criminal federal code. If you're here and have a visa and you overstayed a work permit, and any violations of those, so you're here legally on something, but maybe it expired, that's a civil violation. That's not a criminal violation, but an actual civil violation. And in those cases, that is not what they're picking people up for right now. What you could get is somebody come talk to you and say, hey, you got to go get back to court, and send you back to court because you're outside the bounds or your visa has expired. But those are not the cases that we're seeing today where ICE is picking people up.
I can't comment on a specific case that I'm not privy to all of the information. But I think that's a good question because I've gotten these calls a lot. If there's one place that you should stay away from right now, unless you are a lawful permanent resident or you are a refugee or an asylee, it's airport. A lot of people don't know this. When you actually, if you have contact with CBP at an airport and now you're in the hands of ICE, you are now in a totally different category, because they will now hold you as what's called an arriving alien. Now that has some serious implications, which means your due process rights, to put it bluntly, are very limited and, at best. You can't even go to, if ICE decides to detain you, you can't even go to immigration court and ask for a bond. What I will say, depending on what your work permit is for. People get work permit. I've met people who come to my office and they have work permit. They're not even supposed to have a work permit. They don't need to. They just give the government whatever the fee was at the time. You came here as a refugee, but you are in a state where they say, go get a work permit or you won't get an ID. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that in Minnesota anymore. But you don't need a work permit if you came here as a refugee. You're already authorized to stay here and work indefinitely. Or if you came to the United States and you applied for and was granted asylum, right? And you work permit, that person is already an asylee. They're just using that work permit to prove to the employer, many of them don't know what the I-94 is, right? But if you're someone who are on TPS and you got your work permit through that way, I would not be running around airports right now. No, because it's just one way that you might put yourself somewhere where you go from something that it may not be a big deal and now it's a big deal, right? They're not going to deport you if you're on TPS. But do you want to go through the expense of time and money just so the judge can say, oh, you're not going to deport this person, they're on TPS, right? So I would just say that. I don't know what that person's exact situation is, but if they're not in one of those categories, I'll stay away from an airport.
Thank you. We have another question from the audience.
Thank you. My name is Arthur Bia. I am the chairman for the board of directors for the Organization of Librarians in Minnesota. I have a question that was sent to me by a member of the community. Say I have a criminal record that is 20 years old for assaulting a police officer, just a by example. Okay, 20 years ago. And this case, was, like I said, 20 years ago, and I've been here. It has been adjudicated, but the record has not been expunged. I've gone ahead, filed for my residence permit. I've been granted my green card. Should I still be afraid that this case that, I've disclosed to the government and getting my green card will still come to haunt me? Thank you.
I'll try to take a stab at that. First of all, if you had disclosed that information, as many of you here know, when you apply for your green card, there's a very good chance you were fingerprinted, right? Before your interview, whether you're interviewed or not. Boy, you were fingerprinted, right? If that issue came up, and either through a waiver or whatever, you were granted your lawful permanent residency, that's not an issue for your green card anymore. But let's say that you travel outside of the United States and you're coming, and these people, you got to know this. It does not matter how long you've gotten your green card in this country. Anytime you leave, when you're coming back to the United States, you're seeking what they call admission. You're basically walking in front of one CBP officer and saying, here's my green card, I want to go back to my residency. You can be picked up for what's called secondary inspection, and now you are in immigration hot water, right? The other thing you got to think about, depending on what happened, let's say that issue, just your criminal record did not come up during your adjustment of status process. Or God forbid, you failed to disclose it, and now you go back to immigration, you apply for citizenship. And that stuff came up. It comes up. Guess what? There is now a good chance now you're not only not going to be granted citizenship, your green card is now in jeopardy, right? And at that point, you'll get a letter, very likely from the local field office that interview saying you obtain your green card by fraud or misrepresentation. Not only now you don't have a green card, you're going to be in proceedings to be deported. So, and the other thing you have to understand, let's say everything was done right below, you got your green card, now you're applying for citizenship. Even if that record had been expunged, you must disclose that to CIS as part of your N-400 application. You have to tell them that. We get these cases sometimes where people say, oh, it's been 20 years. No, you have to get the record, certify copies of the record, and bring it to your interview. Okay, so again, it depends, but that's what it is in a nutshell.
Hi, everybody. I want to say thanks to the Olem family for organizing this town hall committee. I also want to say thanks to the panelists for coming. My question goes like this. I am the Secretary General of the Minnesota Madingo Association. We have some community members who just came through the same illegal process. Some documents are still in process, and they have court date coming in the next couple of days. They are afraid. So what advice can you give to our community to not miss their master hearing? Thank you.
Well, I don't know whether this is advice or not, but the first thing you should do is don't miss your immigration hearing. If you have a date to appear before an immigration judge, go. Okay? First of all, it's your chance to see if there is a basis for you to stay here. And second, and more importantly, if you don't go at your hearing, what's going to happen? You're going to be ordered deported in your absence. Okay? So that's one. For people who have been in the United States for less than 2 years, the process is somewhat different. But if you've been processed by ICE, you've been released, and you were ordered, like most of these people that came across so-called Nicaragua, you have a date to report to ICE. That's completely different from the immigration court. The reporting is part of your supervised release by ICE. Make your reporting. You are still going to get your day in court. You're going to have a chance to go to court and seek whatever relief that you think you're eligible for and let the judge make a decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my question, I hope the HU are here, but the chief can answer that along with the mayor. Trump said that the DOJ going to prosecute local state officials that don't work with them, with immigration. And we know in Minnesota being a sanctuary state, where you put yourself, because you're saying we're not going to help them. But according to that thing, they expect the local officials to help. So we stand at the eyes. All right, you guys going to protect us. So where do you stand when you're going to be prosecuted?
That's a great question. So a few things to break apart there. So there is a law on the books that's around immigration that says no official, so no police chief, no mayor, nobody in the state can make a rule that prohibits a police officer or any employee from cooperating with an ICE agent around immigration. So I cannot actually tell my police officers that, hey, you can't speak to ICE, you can't work with ICE, you can't call ICE, you can't share information with ICE about immigration, about an individual who's here undocumented, etc. Now, some of you may have said, well, wait, Chief, you just said that you guys don't ask the question. That's exactly right. In my policy for police officers, it says in there that you will not ask, inquire, or even reference immigration while you're speaking to our community members. That's not your role. Your role is to provide service and safety and security to this community. And so we're not even asking the question to know if the person is undocumented or illegal. So we can never be accused by the letter of the law that we're not cooperating with ICE. We don't know. We don't have the information because we didn't ask. Now, where that does stop is when we get to the jail, if somebody's arrested. That is where there's certain processes like fingerprinting, or when we have to ask you what country of origin that you were born in, because we have consulate duties to notify a consulate if you're foreign born. And those are triggers. And so when ICE is made aware of those, they can call and ask an employee a question. And the law, the federal law says, nobody can stop that employee from answering that question with ICE and cooperating. So what we heard Trump say, right, is if we have communities that are not going to cooperate, that Department of Justice is going to charge them with a crime. And we hear this reference, sanctuary cities. Sanctuary city, in my opinion, is nothing more than a city suggesting we're not going to work with ICE. We're not in the business of immigration. We hold up our hands and say, hey, we love our community. Our community we're all, right, a country of immigrants and derived from immigrants, and we love our immigrants in our community, and so we support them. It's a moral support. It has no legal binding. No sheriff or mayor can come up with a rule that says, we're going to stop ICE from doing their job. You can't. I mean, they could do that, but then legitimate Trump's threat would be accurate, where they could take action and arrest the mayor. They could arrest anybody that prohibited from that from happening. And so, however, they cannot mandate that we do work with them. Meaning, Trump can't say, Brooklyn Park Police or Mayor, tell your police department that they're going to help us pick up people, that we're going to do search warrants, or we're going to do job site visits, and we're going to pick up people, and your police officers are going to help us. Or when your police officers stop somebody, we want them to ask if their immigration status, and if they're illegal, you're going to hold them in your jail and alert ICE. They can't do any of that. They can't make us be federal agents. They can only say, you can't inhibit our ability as federal agents to do our job. So I hope I try to make that as clear as possible, is nothing Trump can do that can make me tell my officers to go enforce ICE laws. That's up to me. I make that decision on what they're going to do, and they're not going to do that.
Thank you. I do have one online question before you.
So just quick, yeah, I'll make it brief. But, I would second that. I think some of this confusion and the administration is playing off of this is that people don't necessarily understand how the U.S. government works, and it's a federalist government, right? So you have the federal government has their responsibilities and powers, but then there are other powers that are not necessarily defined. Those go to the states, and those goes to the local level. And so, as our chief said, you can't necessarily compel the city to have a specific policy, right? And I also know that A.J. Ellison's not here, but there are some things that he's doing. I don't know if it's a suit but he's challenged that in terms of saying, just to make it clear, you cannot compel these local governments to do certain things, and you can't punish local electeds for basically doing their job, right? And we have responsibilities as a city, and the federal government can't come in and say, well, those responsibilities are hijacked by the federal government, right? That's a very different type of government we would have in that situation. So I think some of this is people not necessarily knowing how that flows and how the power flows. I think people kind of say, well, if the feds do it, then everybody else must be lockstep with that. And that's not how this works, right? And there's some good things there, because it allows for many of the things that we are doing as a city. And then just to get ahead of it, some people have asked, well, they said they're going to cut off funding to cities for that are sanctuary cities, or that have policies that don't go along with what we want. And so I think there's legislation out there that's challenging that as well, because, again, I think people are playing on a lack of understanding of the Constitution and how our country and our government works. Congress appropriates or determines the amount of dollars, right? And they also are saying these are how those dollars need to be spent. And that is in law. So you can't just come in and with an executive order say, well, Congress said these dollars are to be spent this way. Forget about that. I wrote an executive order. This is how it's going to be. No, Congress is one of the three powers. You got the executive, you've got the legislature, which is Congress, right? The Senate and the House. And then you have your judiciary. All of them in their own ways have equal powers. And I think what people are playing on in some situations is that people don't understand that you have these three parts that already made America great in terms of how we operate as a country. So I would say just keep that piece in mind, that there will be a lot of threats from people that, hey, we're going to use this power if you don't agree with us, right? But that's not necessarily written in stone, and that's not necessarily how our government works. And our city has basically said, this is the policy that works best for us to keep our residents safe and protected, and for us to operate and do a good job as a city. So I would encourage people to keep that in mind, and also understand that, yes, we have Attorney General Ellison, who is always willing to respond to us, but we also have our own legal team in-house that is also advising us as we make these decisions. as a city.
Very, very well said, Mayor, and appreciate that. One thing I want to really emphasize, because I've been asked this, and that is by community members like say, hey, as long as I'm in Minneapolis, I'm good because they said they're a sanctuary county and a sanctuary city, so I'm fine. Any local jurisdiction declaring that they're a sanctuary anything does not benefit you in any way. The ICE still can come in, you still can be deported, you still can be arrested, you still can be picked up. All the sanctuary city delineation is saying is that community is not going to get involved in immigration laws. They could. I'm sure across maybe even this state, and certainly across this nation, local jurisdictions can choose to partner with federal agents and do that work. We choose not to, and everybody in Hennepin County it chooses not to. And I know that because Hennepin County Chiefs Association released a press release saying, hey, in Hennepin County, us police chiefs unite that we are not going to be in the work of immigration. It does not serve or further the work of public safety in our communities, and so we're not going to be involved in it. That is all Sanctuary City does. It's just more of a declaration by a community to say we support our community, we're not going to do immigration, but it does not give you any legal protection. And I had to express that with some community members, like, don't continue to go contact great people like this to figure out your status and to protect yourself, because don't rely on Sanctuary City as really having any legal meaning.
Thank you. So one question from an online viewer is talking about assistance for low-income households who need emergency help with dealing with ICE. So I know, Attorney Jalloh, you had said that sometimes the cost involved in these kind of situations for bond and whatnot can be high. So how do folks who are low income get those sort of resources to help deal with ICE?
Well, that's a very good question. I, like all of my colleagues in the state of Minnesota, we're required and are expected by the bar to volunteer and spend some of our time pro bono without being paid any penny to help for the justice in any area of the law that you are involved in. And I try to do that. I have several cases every year that I'm helping people out pro bono, and I have a lot of colleagues who do that as well. But more importantly, we have some fantastic organizations in Minnesota. The Minnesota Advocates for Human Rights is a huge source. They are I don't remember the number offhand, but they are very easy to access online. We have the Immigrant Law Center in St. Paul and similar organizations. Again, you might be pleasantly surprised of what kind of resources you can find. You can only find them, though, if you reach out, okay? Just reach out. Talk to somebody. We went through this, as I said, 4 years ago. I cannot tell you how many people were coming into my office and they have to make a decision. There is mom, there are 3 children, or even maybe 4. Dad has been picked up. He's the only breadwinner. Mom is at home with an infant. And now mom has to decide whether she will pay somebody like me or even pay a bond or pay the rent. That's heart-wrenching. But that's the situation we're in. Just reach out.
This question is for Councilor Jalloh. My name is Lapu Hunter. I have a family member who's been here on asylum indefinitely. So when this happened, we got afraid. We should we get a lawyer? But then one of the family members said, you know what? He's been here this long without any problems. And the lawyer who helped us when he got the status said he should be fine. So now, with everything that you've been saying, I'm wondering, because he is on asylum and he has on the paper indefinite, should we be concerned?
Well, I always try to refrain from giving specific comments on a case that I don't know the whole information. But let me just say this. If you've been granted asylum in the United States, asylum is the other side of refugee. refugee is what you get when you are outside the United States. Many people here came here through that way because of the anarchy that ravaged our region for over 10 years, right? If you come to the United States and you apply for asylum, you either affirmatively, which means you apply for asylum, you're not in proceeding, you're granted asylum, or you're granted asylum by the immigration judge. That asylum on your new I-94 says indefinitely. The law requires you to wait 1 year from the date of the grant to file for your green card. If you don't file, that doesn't mean your asylum goes away. I have represented people for their green card that have been granted asylum for years. They just didn't file, right? They just, they have a driver's license, they have applied for a refugee travel document, and they've been traveling. So I guess the answer to that is no. Unless, of course, there are other issues that you don't know about. This person now has a criminal record, and they have violated the asylum condition, and they may be in jeopardy if they file for their green card. But if you have been granted asylum, you got 1 year. When the 1 year is up, guys, apply. Don't wait, right? Do not wait, apply.
Thank you. I have an online question, and it brought us on what we've all been speaking about, the fear. And I know the chief talked about that. One of our sisters asked a question about a family member traveling because of fear. The question here is, there's been a proliferation of social media postings. We talk about ICE raids, and some folks have managed, because Facebook now is monetizing stuff for views, and folks are using that to talk about ICE coming and ICE raids, and it's paralyzing some people in our community. I know there's nothing legal you can do about that, but as community leaders, as a law enforcement officer, as the mayor of the city, and as a councilor, what would you say to folks who are in this person where infesting folks with paralysis because they're so frightened that folks are saying ICE is coming everywhere?
I'll let the chief take a stab at that first.
Yeah, very timely, very concerning for me, and I'm trying to, and that's probably the main reason why I've been so vocal about getting out to groups like this, online, podcasts. I've been doing anything, and I have a bunch more this week, is because there has been lots of things online saying, oh, I seen Brooklyn Park pulling people over and handing them over to ICE. I seen ICE in Brooklyn Park doing raids this week, and it's really disappointing. It's disappointing because it's not true. And it's disappointing because we're fear-mongering. We're trying to build fear to people that can't necessarily, tell the truth, and they're already fearful of what may happen to them sending kids to school. And there's real impacts to our community. There's real impacts when you're seeing this on social media and a mother's got to make a decision if they're going to send their kids to school. I think, and my ask what we can do is do what all of you are doing, is be educated to what we can. We can't control the unknowns, but we can know where we are at today and get the best information, which is why I'm openly sharing everything I know about it. And we're going to absolutely work together as a community moving forward. You have each other, you have your local government, and we're going to work together to pave the way. Building a bunch of fear to scare everybody does not accomplish anything. It just scares people. And so, I think the best thing we can do is get out the information like we're doing here. I know that we have you're online, we have people in the audience, and what I would ask is that all of you be ambassadors to your circles. Go out and say, hey, I talked to the Attorney General. I listened and had questions answered by the police chief, by an attorney, and get out and get the facts out there of what you know, where we're at, what people that are supportive of our community are doing to help, and there's reason to be fearful, but we can't terrorize people because that's not good for anyone. So,
yeah, when this started kicking off, there was somebody that lied about my stance on immigration. They had a political reason to do it, and I take it personally because I think residents don't deserve to be lied to or scared or misled when it comes to this. And I think one of the ways to combat people that have that low character, that are trying to get clicks or trying to scare the community, I think one way is what Chief Bruley said, is we need to be what MLK, Martin Luther King said, the beloved community. We need to be sharing information with one another, letting people know the truth, and just interacting with and understanding what people are going through, which is difficult because we're all in different places in our life, right? But we still need to reach out to one another and let folks know. I think the other piece is this, is that people have to, and the internet is terrible with this, social media is terrible with this, but we as a community have to know where to look to find the appropriate information. Because even before what we're seeing with immigration occurred, there was all sorts of rumors and ugliness that was going on around the internet, and it costs people many times. So what I would tell people out there in the audience or folks that are listening, you know, if you have a government that is sharing information, your local government is sharing information, right? If you have a police department like ours, or if you know that there are trusted attorneys or people that are putting information out there, share that information. Go to those information sources. Because when you look at the internet, many times people are trying to get an immediate reaction and cause that fear, whether it's for their own shallow political purposes, right? Or whether it is because they just want to get likes and they know this is the topic of the day, right? So I would say to combat that, direct people where to look. Or if you're somebody who's scared, find out where to look, where to get that information. Go to your church, or go to people who are networked into that information, and then they can direct you to the right sources. But don't panic when you see information. Seek out the correct information, but do not immediately respond to something that you're seeing online, because many times that information is put there for political reasons, to get likes, or honestly to divide and conquer as a community, because we as a police, our police force will say something, our city will come out and say something, and then sometimes we'll see somebody say something contrary because it serves their purpose. Go to the sources that are trusted, that you know are actually doing the work, and go to the people that you trust as well. And that's how you're going to get the appropriate information, and that's how you're going to fight back against that fear, is knowing exactly what those facts are and what's going on. So reach out to the city if you have questions as well, or reach out to some of the resources that we have up here so that you can get the actual answer to what is going on and not live. It's kind of like living in darkness, right? You don't want to live in that darkness. The more light you get on it, the better you feel, the better you know how to navigate. So take that approach rather than responding to what you see on the internet.
That's a very interesting question. Anyone here have seen on their Facebook or WhatsApp post about the Ivorian lady? You guys heard about that? It's a bunch of BS. It's baloney. It's not true. The Ivorian lady, who supposedly is a U.S. citizen, traveled on a U.S. and Ivorian passport, went to Ivory Coast, and now came back, and CBP says she can't come into the U.S., right? That's a flat-out lie for many reasons. Number one, and for those of you who are on the French side of the colonial divide, correct me if I'm wrong, Ivory Coast does not have dual citizenship. Number two, and more importantly, a CBP officer, no matter how powerful he or she is at the port of entry, does not have the power to deny you entry into your own home country if you're a U.S. citizen. Not going to happen. Now, if you're traveling, and I see this very often in our community, my brothers from Liberia are notorious for this. We don't want to go pay for the visa. We have a Liberian passport and a U.S. passport, right? What you do is, when you get to Minneapolis, let's say you're flying from MSP, you check in with your U.S. passport, right? And if the ticketing agent says, do you have a visa? No, I have a Liberian passport. I don't need a visa to enter Liberia. When you get to Robert Field, what do? You present your Liberian passport, so you don't have to worry about paying for visa on arrival, right? And you ask that immigration agent, the officer in Liberia, to stamp both your Liberian and U.S. passports, right? I have people who come to my office. They want to do, oh, Mr. Jalloh, I just came back from Africa. I'm in love. I want to file for my fiance. Well, I need proof that you entered the country that you went to, right? If you don't have a stamp and you don't have your ticket, how do we prove you are in that country? So again, it just goes to tell you, This is not, that whole Liberian, that Ivorian lady stuff, it's not just about undocumented people. It's social media trying to scare you as citizens. But it's not true. They send that in to me 10 times. I have it on my phone. I just had the same thing, baloney. Don't pay attention to it, okay?
This is our final question by Pastor Collins.
Good evening, everyone. So, Attorney Jalloh, thank you. Actually, my wife is in Liberia, so when they sent that thing to her, she was really afraid. So I just told her, go to the U.S. Embassy. So she went to the embassy, and they got all this there. Don't worry about it. It got all solved. So thank you for saying that. It's true. I have a question specifically for the church. I'm Alexander Collins. I pastor Redeemed Light Church, and I'm also the chairperson of the board of directors of Liberian Ministers Association. Here is my question. St. Paul Church is in service, and they have on the door St. Paul's Church, private space, with their logo, bull riding. An ICE officer comes to the door because he believes that there is someone in church that is undocumented. What should the pastor do? And seeing the writing private space, should the ICE officer still be able to enter there? What should the church do? That's my question.
Yeah, I was going to give it back to the lawyer. It's a great question, and there's some nuance there because what you're trying to do is say it's a private space. So we know the Fourth Amendment has the most protection that you have in your life is your home. Your home is protected at the top. Like, it's your sanctuary. It's exactly right. And so police officers really can only go in with consent, your consent, or a search warrant. Now we get out in the public. And what you're talking about is out in the public. So it'd be like if you go to Walmart and somebody's in there that we know that we go to arrest, we don't ask somebody from Walmart if we can go in there. It's a public place where you anticipate, reasonably believe that your level of privacy, your expectation of privacy is lower. Right? So we go into Walmart, we make an arrest, it wouldn't be any different. The church is somewhere in between there. It's certainly open. So if I came into that private space and I wasn't wearing this uniform, would you let me in? Then the expectation for the federal agents is they're going to be let in, to be honest with you. And they will probably just expect that. It would just come in because it would be considered an open place. Now, could you go, oh, hey, stop them at the door and deny them entry? You could. I think it would just be problematic. I think you could. It gets really nuanced. If they seen the person that they wanted and they knew they were inherently dangerous, let's just say, for sake of conversation, the person that they wanted that was in the church here, in this private space, was wanted for murder, right? And maybe it was a murder conviction or something, and ICE has got the case because they entered this country illegally, are undocumented, and ICE has been looking for them, and they tracked them down here for whatever reason. And you block that, I would say it's a really high likelihood that you're going to get arrested as well for blocking their access in there. Again, because the expectation of privacy is low. It's a public place. Again, you're private in that maybe it's for your membership, and there's some nuance there. But it's definitely not your house where you absolutely, even if the murder was in your house, you could say, no, they cannot come in your house for that sake. And I'll let you clean it up.
Thank you, Chief. No, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Now, I've had this a lot, Pastor. I know there may be some cultural barriers here. People like you take enormous responsibility for your congregation. But I want you to also know that you do have limitations, no matter how much care you have. You know, it used to be for immigration enforcement, you will hear they say the church, the school, they call them sensitive places, right? The rationale behind that is just like what the chief was alluding to. You really don't have a whole lot of options and when your door is wide open, right? So just keep that in mind. Do not put yourself in a position where you're not only going to have 2 or 3 of your congregation going with ICE, but the pastor is going as well. That's not helpful, right? So just keep that in mind.
I just want to add one. So I gave you the extreme example of them looking for a dangerous person and they're coming in there. Let's go the other way. Let's just say this progresses as time goes on, ICE continues to get more staff, and they want to sweep your church because they got a rumor that there's a lot of undocumented people in your church. And then they come in and say, hey, you stop them and ask them, hey, what are you doing here? And they're like, we're going to start going through your church, talking to people looking for undocumented. No, that's different, right? Now that is a completely different, you would have an expectation of privacy, be like, no, this isn't Walmart. I get it's not my house, but this is a congregation. We are worshiping. It is a sensitive place. And you're not here in the interest of public safety or one person who may be harming others. You're just literally looking through crowds of people. I would say you have every right to say, no, I want you to leave my establishment, or come back with a warrant, which they're never going to get a warrant for that. And I'm just going to emphasize, I unequivocally got it from the director of ICE. There's no plans to do sweeps or walkthroughs or large-scale raids. I mean, he was very clear that that's never been talked about from the bosses from Washington. They have no interest in entering places of worship or schools. That's the information that I have today. So I just want to make sure we're really just hypothesizing here what could happen.
Well, while we will do it at the dinner table, we're going to have refreshment then. Actually, we went beyond expectation. We had set up 30 minutes for this segment, and I must commend the police chief, our very own Mohammed Jalloh, the mayor, for enduring this much time. Put your hands together. Yeah. I mean, with just a tiny bottle of water, and he kept going. Well, so, yeah, say that? No. We'll do it at the luncheon. So we got refreshment in the gym. Every time you come to this sanctuary, Dr. Tabla always make it easy for you to refresh yourself and interact. So yeah, and again, we will just cut it off right now. We'll call on Bernice David Cooper to give us the resources that we need. And then you clap for the guest in African attire.
Good evening, everyone. First thing first, I want to thank Mayor Hollies, Chief Bruley, and Attorney Jalloh for your time tonight. What a wonderful presentation. Yes. Wonderful presentation. And I'm saying wonderful because I'm in the community and I'm doing a lot of the background work. I am very familiar with Chief Bruley and the work that he's doing. So when Kamaty told me what he was doing, I said, say no more. I will be here. My name is Bernice, and I consider myself your ambassador and your advocate. I am a social worker by trade. So when Kamaty told me about this, and I said, Kamaty, when I think about what's going on and I think of crisis, I think of fear. A lot of people want to know, how can you help me now? So I will put together a list of resources that we can share out to you all. We have a table back there before you leave to grab those resources to share with people within your community, the different communities, or whoever might benefit from it. So I just want to go over some of the resources that I have here. One of the resources that I have that wasn't mentioned much tonight, but I know Chief Bruley's been talking about that quite a bit, is the U&T visa. What is that? What does it do? For folks who are undocumented and experiencing some level of abuse or traffic and are afraid to come out to seek, support because they're afraid that it might be deported, the county attorney office has a program that gives you some type of pathway to some level of legality. So we have that paperwork out there. We have contact information on it. I'm not the expert on the UNT visa. I just have a little bit of understanding about it because we did some training. But we do have the direct contact for the county attorney office for the individual who's responsible for that work. So I'm going to urge all of you to please take a copy of that. The next one is immigration resources in Minnesota. I came up with a list of some of the agencies that have been doing this work for a long time. I know some of us came here and utilized those agencies and just forgot about them, but they're still in existence and they're still here to support us. So please, please, please take those resources and reach out to them. I know Attorney Jalloh mentioned the Immigration Law Center. I actually call most of these places and have conversations with them. So there's summaries about what they can and cannot do. There's information about their hours, there's information about their contact, and what have you. Most of them are willing to set up consultation with you, to chat with you. One of the things I want to mention here tonight, because of the unpredictability of things, I'm going to encourage all of you to check your documentation. Make sure it's updated. Make sure it's not expired. If it is, these are the resources that you can use to get those documents up to date. I just helped someone last Friday who told me, oh, when I get paid, I will be able to get that document. I said, no, we're going to apply for a fee waiver and we're going to get that paperwork out there. And we apply, and Monday she's going to be going to put that paperwork in the mail and texting me to tell me, hey, I did it. Okay, so we're willing to do some of that. But please, 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 my advice to you is check your document. If your green card expires, there are people out there that want to help you to take care of that. You know, it would be a disservice not to thank Attorney Jalloh here. I have a resource of pro bono attorneys, and I know he mentioned some of the pro bono work that he does, you know, here and there in the year. But if he is booking for some reason doesn't have the ability or the capacity to take additional, I have a list of attorneys here and that will do that pro bono work. So please take that information and reach out to them, contact them, and see how they can support you. These attorneys are in good standing, this list. They are in good standing with the board of lawyers, attorney. And I'm saying that to say many of us do nursing assistant work. If we don't have our nursing assistant license, we're not going to that nursing home, we're not going to that healthcare. It's the same with lawyers. If they're not in good standing, sometimes they might try to practice, but this list are people who are in good standing. So make sure you take that, utilize that. If you have questions, reach out to me or Kamaty, and we'll be able to figure out how to support you or send you the right direction. I'm not an immigration expert, but I am an expert in searching resources and directing you in the direction that you need to go. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I didn't hear that clap. Okay, now everything is over. The gym has a lot of goodies. They got the chicken wing, meat pie, meatball, salad, those that can eat salad, but there's no toboggi rice today and no flour salt. All right, so Dr. Tabla, come wrap it up. Tell us all these things that the people say and so. So hold on, let Pastor Tabla talk, and then the board chairman tell you thank you. Our guests have to leave first before go.
Well, I don't know what he means by summarize all of this because I'm not a lawyer either. I'm a pastor. But one thing I can say, Mayor Hollies, Winston, Attorney Jalloh, Chief Bruley, and even the panelists who left, you have helped us a great deal. And I'm sure the pastors who are here can attest, because our job is to stand before people on a weekly basis. We stand before people all of the time. And you can stand before people and see the fear People are gripped with fear. There's trepidation. And what you have done tonight, you have actually increased our knowledge. You know, they said knowledge is power. All right? If you are not informed, you will be deformed. And fear can deform people. And so what you have done tonight, you have helped us essentially. I just peeked at the social media platform, and a lot of people from across the country are watching, and you have helped not just local people, but people across the country. And so we wanted to say thank you so much. Again, we feel so privileged as a church to be able to host this gathering. All right, that is part of our mission. That is part of our calling. And we just want to say thank you, Honorable Kamaty and your team. Thank you all so much. And I just want to also mention, especially those of you who are from Liberia, what we are dealing with now cannot be compared to what we went through in Liberia. I mean, you talk about going through one of the most devastating civil wars in human history. We went through that. It came to pass. All right? We dealt with immigration issues here before in our community, and God took us through. We are definitely sure this particular situation we are dealing with will come to pass. All right? So we will let us do all that we have been encouraged to do. Let us make use of the information and the education. But ultimately, we will pass through this situation. All right, so let us hold fast. We will get over. We definitely will get over. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Y'all can't go and eat the food and y'all leave the people here. Okay. Mr. Board Chairman, give the vote of tens.
Thank you. I don't want to stand between your snack or your dinner out there, so I'm going to be very brief. I want to say a special thank you to these great men. Please give them a big hand of applause. Again and again. I'm very proud to be a part of this community. We have some states where the leaders in the communities are not helping the citizens. They are, in fact, helping federal government to add flame to the fire. And we are, very fortunate in Minnesota to have a state that supports us as citizens and as, community leaders to make sure that whatever stress we are having, they can help us to alleviate that stress. So I want to say thank you. We say thank you as ODM. We say thank you as a community, immigrant community. We want to say we appreciate you today, and we appreciate you in days to come. Thank you. I want to say thank you to the host church and all the leaders of the Liberian Minister Association. They partner with us on this event. Thank you to ACER for providing the snack. We want to say thank you to all our partners that, were part of this program. I will not sit without saying thank you to our two dynamic moderators, my co-chair and my young and energetic attorney, Cole. Thank you. We said thank you to all of you for coming out, but I want to leave you with this. Everything we have learned here, please, let's spread it out. The same way we can spread this misinformation online. You see the foreign lady post, you send it to 10 people. Post this thing to 10 people tonight. Let them be informed. And I also want you to know that America is a federal system. Every state is not the same. So when you hear something happen in Texas, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in Minnesota. Let's remember that. Because sometimes we hear they say that's happening in Oklahoma, and we say, oh, they're doing this in Oklahoma, and so we in Minnesota start panicking. But what we can do is prepare ourselves with knowledge. If you have questions after this, please stop by ODM, call ODM. We have connection with these people and many other resources to help you every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll remain in our seats before the guest list, but I want to recognize again the executive director of the Liberian Ministerial Association. Please stand. One of the brains behind this. Okay. And we want to say a special thank you from the representative from the ULA National President, Mr. Salih. Mr. Salih, please stand again. Thank you. Now, can we all remain standing as we chair our people down the stage to go straight into that one? You can continue the conversation in the gym while we're eating our chicken wing, meat pie, and those of you who can eat salad, go ahead and eat salad. Oh, hold on. We need to take a picture with the panda. Hold on. Picture time, please. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Secretary, come. ULA President. Let's take a picture. I will take it. The cameraman. Come. Yeah, please get take it for us. Yeah. Oh, so you got immigration started? Let me see my mail.
You didn't get immigration.